of Shabbos. This is the Parsha where we are asked whether or not we believe in ourselves. More than any other portion, quite possibly, we are asked as Jews whether we believe as Jews in what goals we have to accomplish as Jews. You won't be surprised to discover that there are any number of different ways to approach that question. The story is exciting and compelling, and it impacts us anew when we read it every year, this year especially. As the portion of Shelach opens, it's time for the Jewish people to realize the dream. Time for us to meet our national destiny. What did we leave Egypt for? What did we receive the Torah for? What did we journey through the wilderness for? To come home, to arrive in our land, the promised land, to be a holy people in our land, to bring the children of Israel to the land of Israel itself and realize all the blessings that had been promised up to this point. In retrospect, what could have possibly gone wrong? Arriving at the edge of Israel, seeing the goal within sight, we're instructed from on high to send scouts into the land, to reconnoiter, to gather intel on how it could best be entered and conquered and settled. Great leaders are chosen, leaders of the tribes, ahead of each group, to be our agents in this mission. What could go wrong? They would seek out the land, come back with valuable insight, which then we would actualize into a strategic plan of action. What could go wrong is already hinted to in the opening words. Shelach, send, lecha, for yourselves. Send spies for yourselves. Rashi clarifies, as if any were needed, ledatcha, so that you will know. Innocent enough. But the hint of so that you know is that why don't you know already? If you've been reading this book for 3.5 books already, you know exactly where this is all headed. The promise to Abraham in Genesis, the promise to the ancestors, Joseph's insistence that he not be buried in Egypt, rather take me with you when you go, bury me there. You can't not know that Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, is headed to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. If our ancestors heard since Abraham that we were promised this land, if Isaac never left it for a moment of his life, a merit that people in our time strive to achieve and sometimes do, if we are called by the very name of the land, the name for us, Israel, is the same name as the land, how can we not know? How can we not believe? How can we not feel confident? But if you feel you need to send scouts, so send them if that makes you feel better. Gets worse. The story as it unfolds in our portion this week is this. At the edge of the promised land, we decide to send these 12 scouts in to scope out the territory. They're charged with a very specific task. First, Aliyah says in verse 17, see the land. How is it? And the people that dwells in it, are they strong? Are they weak? Are they few? Are they numerous? And how is the land in which it dwells? Is it good or bad? Are the cities open or fortified? Or isam esa'aretz, mahi, and so on. So the spies, the Meragalim, do half of the job correctly, and half of it they mess up. They do go into the land. They do spend time, 40 days, on their reconnaissance mission, and they return to the Jewish camp with their report. But among the things they get wrong are that they interpret the data that they have amassed. They say in verse 31, we cannot ascend to that people because they are too strong for us. Lo nuchal. They evaluate the entire goal, the entire program, and they say, based on their judgment, we will not be able to do it. Let's be clear. We always appreciate people speaking their truth, telling us what's on their minds. And discretion is the better part of valor. As we learned from Henry IV, Part 1, there is a time and a place for everything. Instead of discussing their misgivings, their anxieties privately with their commander-in-chief, with Moshe Rabbeinu, the spies basically posted to social media, which in those days they came back to the camp and they blabbed it all over the place. What a mess it was going to be if the Israelites tried to enter Israel. It's not going to go well. We can't do it. We don't up to the task. Verse 1 of the next chapter, still the second Aliyah, the entire assembly raised up and issued its voice. The people wept that night. Vatisa kol ha'eda ve'itnu es kolam, vayivku ha'am balayla hahu. Everyone gave in to the panic and lost confidence in themselves and lost trust in the one who took us out of Egypt for just this moment. Since they cried and lamented for no reason, says the Talmud in Tractate Tainus, page 29a, that day became a day of Bechia Ledoros, a day of weeping for generations to come. On the Hebrew calendar, it was the 9th day of the month of Av, Tisha B'Av, which up to our times has been a day of lamentation for us. Let's open a short parenthesis here and just remind ourselves of something we've discussed before. People ask about less frequently, which may be a good sign. Here you have 12 Meraglim, 12 spies sent in to do a job. Only 2 came back, having done what was actually asked of them. Only Joshua, Yehoshua, who would later become Moshe's successor, and Caleb, whom we discussed briefly in one of our classes this week. Only those 2 returned, having fulfilled the mission exactly as they were charged. The other 12, who shall remain nameless, even though they're listed at the beginning of the parsha by name, they returned with a pessimistic and, as it turned out, inaccurate set of impressions and interpretations. In fact, these 10 men gathered to demonstrate, whether this was their intention or not, that they did not believe in what God had promised us, that they did not believe or trust in the covenant, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, that they did not keep faith with God's faith in us, in the Jewish people. So to rectify the sin of 10 of the 12 spies, to remind ourselves and restore all those things that were damaged when these 10 men convened to show their lack of trust, their lack of faith, to this day we convene 10 men to proclaim the opposite, that we do trust in God, that we are a people who are up to the task. Here in the 4th Aliyah, verse 27, they are called Edah, a congregation, as in Ad Masai Edah Hara'ah Hazais. How long will this unworthy congregation, this assembly, keep on kvetching? Today, when we want to convene an Edah, a community, the minimum number we need to gather is 10, as in a minyan. You'll notice that in the story, no women participated in this slander of the land, or of the people, or of God. Accordingly, no women are called upon to rectify or repent today for that misjudgment then. The reason we need 10 men for a minyan is to show that even men can testify to our belief, even though at that dark moment it was 10 men who almost led us astray off the path. They did cause us 40 years wandering in the desert, but they did not break us. Fortunately, we are still repairing the damage they caused. Now, let's be dan l'chafschus. Let's judge favorably here. Maybe the hearts of these 10 people were in the right place. Let's think about it. What was life like in the desert? Carefree. We had nothing to fear. Clouds of glory shielded us from attackers. A pillar of cloud guided our path by day, a pillar of fire by night. Our clothes were cleaned for us. Manna was provided daily. Manna from heaven, which nourished us completely and occasioned no waste. Things were perfect. And what was the promise of the land? Work and more work. Conquer the land, hard work. Apportion the land, hard work. And then work the land, plant, sow, reap, take your first fruits as an offering. Leave the corners of your fields for needy people to come and take. Then plant some more. Grind the wheat into flour, bake it, take challah, wash, make a bracha. It's a lot of hard work living in the land. Most of us sympathize with the attitude, all things being equal, and if I can stay in bed and sleep or get up and go to work, why not choose the path of least resistance? So if we have everything we need here in the desert, why not just stay here? All we have to do here is learn and daven. If we have to go into the land of Israel and work, in addition to all that, it's just going to distract us. Maybe the spies had good intentions. Rabbi Sachs explains this view to say the spies were not afraid of failure, they were afraid of success. They thought we can go into the land, we can do well, but we'll get so caught up in the day to day, we'll worry so much about parnasa, about our livelihood, that we'll forget how to learn, we'll forget how to daven. The issue they were avoiding or sidestepping here is that the real accomplishment comes about specifically through hard work. We do not rise to our best when everything is handed to us and we don't have to put any effort, as was the case with the manna for 40 years in the desert. We rise to our best in putting in effort, in meeting and overcoming challenges, in binding together with one another to build families and communities, congregations, and a nation. The whole point is for us to do both. We have to both work to earn a living, and we also have to learn and we have to daven. See, they were the first modern Orthodox. To our sorrow, we also have to build an army sometimes. We have to hold our own against those who wish us ill. Armed self defense was not an option for our people for many centuries in exile. Now it is. And while it may not be earning us many friends around the world and in the hallowed halls of the United Nations, more importantly, while it's costing us the lives of our children, hundreds so far in this current conflict, we as a people are holding our own and we are staving off existential threats. Thank God. So this parsha of Shelach calls us to examine within ourselves the most basic question. Do we believe in ourselves? It gives absolutely no pleasure whatsoever to quote such an anti-Semite as Henry Ford, but my kids will tell you this comes up all the time. If you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're probably right. If you think you can, or if you think you cannot, you're probably right. So that explains the machlokes, the difference of opinion between the two groups of spies. One group thought it's too much, it's too much. Another group said, yes, we can. You'll notice that the vast majority said it's impossible. Only 2 out of 12, less than 20%, said we can do it. We're up to the task. Shows you why we're not a democracy, at least not all of the time. What happened? You follow the story. The 10 who said we cannot do it perished in the desert over the next 38 years, along with all those who got suckered into their pessimism. Basically, the entire generation. The 2 who said we can were the only two of that generation that left Egypt, including Moshe Rabbeinu himself, who entered into the land of Israel with the next generation. They thought they could, and they were right. In our days, it's challenging times for the whole Jewish people. Israel has been under attack for nearly 2 years and is exhausted. Nobody slept. The soldiers and reserves are going back on duty again and again and again. And then missiles from Iran and the daily hazards of aerial attacks. Here and around the world, vilification of Israel, no matter what it does. Criticism, even from some among the Jewish community. Thankfully, for the past week, the world has managed to hold its collective tongue because they resent Israel's sponsorship of global terrorism even more than they love to blame Israel. Some world leaders are even admitting that Israel is doing the world's dirty work for it. Be that as it may, neither the praise nor their condemnation ought to hold us back from confidence and clarity in remaining together in every possible way, believing in ourselves and our mission, and supporting our people's self-defense and strength. The times are challenging, the world is complicated, and through it all we return to what we know to be true and enduring. We believe we can, and we must, so we do. It's not a clear or a straight path forward. Since October 7th, Milchemet Simchat Torah, it will be a long, long time before we can even think that we know what tomorrow will bring. Still, we put our trust into what we pray every Shabbos in the words of Isaiah, that the swords will become plowshares and the spears will become pruning hooks, and no one, not us, not anyone, will have any further need to study war or teach it to our children. That would be the greatest victory of all. May we see it together speedily in our days. A good Shabbos.